What's the most you'd ever pay for the ultimate muscle car? 1 million? 2, 5, 10? The 1970s gave us some of the most powerful, aggressive, and downright legendary Australian-made muscle cars. Built for speed, power, and dominance, these machines tore up Bathurst, ruled the streets, and became the most sought-after collectibles decades later. Today, pristine examples of these beasts are fetching jaw-dropping prices at auction, proving their legacy is stronger than ever. But what makes these cars so special? And why are collectors willing to pay millions to own a piece of Aussie motoring history? Let's dive in. 1971 Ford Falcon XY GTHO Phase 3. If there's one car that defines Australian muscle, it's the 1971 Ford Falcon XY GTHO Phase 3. With a 351 Cleveland V8 under the hood, it pushed out an advertised 300 horsepower, though most experts believe the real number was closer to 380. The top speed? A blistering 227 kilometers per hour, unheard of for a sedan in the early 70s. The Phase 3 was purpose-built for Mount Panorama. In 1971, Alan Moffat piloted one to an effortless Bathurst 500 victory, securing its place in history. Ford engineered it with a beefed-up suspension, a 164-liter fuel tank for endurance racing, and race-spec upgrades straight from the factory. This wasn't just a high-performance street machine. It was a race car you could drive home from the dealership. With only 300 units produced, the Phase 3 was rare. But as the years passed, surviving examples became even scarcer. Today, finding one in original condition is almost impossible. When one does hit the auction block, collectors don't hold back. In 2021, a yellow glow Phase 3 sold for a staggering $1.15 million, making it one of the most expensive Australian muscle cars ever. And it wasn't a one-time fluke. These cars routinely fetch seven-figure prices, cementing their legendary status. 1977 Holden Torana A9X hatchback. But Ford wasn't the only one building monsters in the 70s. Across the factory floors of Holden, something just as wild was being prepared, the 1977 Holden Torana A9X hatchback. The A9X wasn't just a great muscle car, it was a Bathurst-winning legend. While Ford's GTHO Phase 3 was about brute force, the A9X was built to be sharp, agile, and unstoppable on the track. Under the hood sat a 5-liter Holden V8, but power wasn't the only thing that made this car special. The A9X came with a revised differential, improved suspension, and 4-wheel disc brakes, a rarity for Australian muscle cars at the time. What truly set it apart was its dominance at Bathurst. In 1979, Peter Brock drove one to a legendary 6-lap victory, a record that still stands today. That event cemented its place in motorsport history, turning it into one of Holden's most collectible cars. Only 100 A9X hatchbacks were ever produced, making them far rarer than the sedans, and an even bigger prize for collectors. In 2022, a hatchback sold for $910,000, pushing it closer to the $1 million club. And prices aren't slowing down. Every time an A9X goes to auction, bidders fight to get their hands on one. The car's combination of racing heritage, rarity, and raw muscle makes it one of Holden's greatest achievements. 1972 Chrysler Valiant Charger E39. When people think of muscle cars, they usually think of big V8 engines. But Chrysler had different plans. The 1972 Valiant Charger E39 was proof that a 6-cylinder could hold its own against the best V8s of the era. In fact, it was the fastest 6-cylinder production car in the world when it hit the streets. At its core was the Hemi 265 cubic inch straight 6, but Chrysler didn't stop there. They bolted on triple Weber carburetors, upgraded the camshaft, and fine-tuned the engine to push out 302 horsepower, more power than some V8s of the time. The result? A car that could run the quarter mile in 14.1 seconds. But like most great cars, the E39 was built in small numbers. Only 149 units ever rolled off the production line, making it an incredibly rare find today. That rarity, combined with its record-setting performance, has made it one of the most sought-after classic Australian muscle cars. In 2021, an E39 sold for $400,000, showing that these cars are finally getting the recognition they deserve. 1972 Ford Falcon XY GTHO Phase 4. 1972 was one of the best years for muscle cars, and before the year ended, Ford took the world by storm again with the 1972 Ford Falcon XY GTHO Phase 4. This car is shrouded in controversy, legend, and what-ifs. It was meant to be Ford's next evolution of the GTHO series, an even more extreme successor to the Phase 3, designed to dominate Bathurst and push Australian muscle cars into supercar territory. But it never got the chance. In 1972, just as the Phase 4 was in development, Australia was hit by the supercar scare, a media-fueled panic claiming high-powered racebred cars were too dangerous for the streets. Under public pressure, Ford was forced to kill the project, leaving only 4 prototypes as the last evidence of what could have been. Those 4 cars became instant collector's items. The XA Phase 4 was supposed to take the already insane GTHO formula and push it even further. It had a 351 Cleveland V8, race-spec internals, improved aerodynamics, and suspension tweaks designed for high-speed endurance racing. But it never got to race or see mass production. In 2018, one of the 4 prototypes sold for $1.75 million, breaking all previous records for an Australian muscle car at auction. The Phase 4 is the rarest of all GTHOs, and the fact that it was axed before it could shine only makes it more desirable. 1973 Holden Torana A9X GT. While the Phase 4 was denied its chance at Bathurst glory, Holden was busy proving that you didn't need the biggest, most powerful car to win. In 1973, a 6-cylinder underdog took on the mighty V8S and came out on top, the 1973 Holden Torana GT XU1. The XU1 was never supposed to win Bathurst. It was too small, too light, and down on power compared to the big Ford the 5th 8S. But Holden had a secret weapon, Peter Brock. In 1972, behind the wheel of an XU1, the young driver pulled off one of the most famous victories in Australian racing history, proving that agility, handling, and strategy could beat raw horsepower. Instead of a V8, the XU1 had a high-revving 3.3-liter 6-cylinder, fine-tuned with triple Stromberg carburetors, a close-ratio 4-speed gearbox, and a lightweight body that made it far more nimble than its competitors. While the Falcon GTHO and Monero were heavy hitters, the XU1 was a scalpel, sharp, precise, and deadly in the right hands. Collectors have caught on to just how special these cars are. The XU1 was already rare, but examples with genuine racing pedigree are almost impossible to find. In 2022, an XU1 sold for $300,000, showing that Brock's legacy is just as strong today as it was in the 70s. 1978 Holden HX Sandman panel van. But not every legendary Aussie muscle car was about winning races. Some were about lifestyle, freedom, and good times, like the 1978 Holden HX Sandman panel van. The Sandman wasn't built for the track. It was built for weekend escapes, beach runs, and long, hazy road trips. More than any other vehicle of its time, the Sandman captured the free-spirited Aussie lifestyle of the 70s. What made the Sandman stand out was its bold styling and customization options. It came with wild decals, optional V8 power, and a panel van design that made it both practical and fun. For young Australians, the Sandman was the ultimate cruiser, big enough to throw a mattress in the back, powerful enough to blast down the highway, and cool enough to turn heads wherever it went. Despite its laid-back image, the Sandman wasn't just for show. Buyers could option it with a 5-liter V8, making it one of the quickest panel vans on the road. And while some people used it purely for its practical benefits, most bought it for one reason only: it was fun. Finding an original, unmodified Sandman today is nearly impossible. Most were used and abused, driven hard, and customized in ways that make stock examples incredibly rare. That rarity has made pristine Sandmans a collector's dream. In 2020, one sold for $250,000 at auction. What was once an affordable, fun-loving surf van has now become a serious investment piece. 1971 Chrysler Valiant Charger R/TE38. The 1971 Chrysler Valiant Charger R/TE38 was built to shake up Australian motorsport, and it did just that. With its triple Weber carbs, high-revving Hemi 6-cylinder, and track-tuned suspension, this machine proved that V8s weren't the only way to dominate. It was quick, aggressive, and loud, making it a favorite among racers and street warriors. Today, it's a rare and highly sought-after collector's item, with auction prices continuing to climb as its legend grows. Only 695 units of the E38 were built, making it a rare find today. While it was eventually overshadowed by the E49, collectors have started recognizing the E38's historical importance. In 2022, one sold for $230,000, a number that will likely keep rising as these cars become harder to find. 1971 Ford Falcon XY GT. But while Chrysler was proving that 6 cylinders could pack a serious punch, Ford was offering up something a little different. The 1971 Ford Falcon XY GT. This muscle car still packed serious heat but didn't come with the GTHO's price tag or racing pedigree. The XY GT was the muscle car for the people. It wasn't as extreme as the GTHO, but it still had the power, the presence, and the street cred that made it one of the most desirable Australian cars of the 1970s. At its core was the same 351 cubic inch Cleveland V8 found in the GTHO, though slightly detuned for reliability and everyday use. Even so, it still made a healthy 300 horsepower, and with the right modifications, it could easily be pushed further. This wasn't just a car for show. It was a proper performance machine that could light up the rear tires with ease and eat up the open road like a muscle car should. Collectors have started recognizing the value of the non-GTHO models, especially since genuine GTHOs have reached astronomical prices. In 2021, a well-preserved XY GT sold for $300,000, proving that demand for these cars is stronger than ever. Finding an original, unmodified example is getting increasingly difficult, as many of these cars were driven hard, modified, or wrecked over the years. These cars aren't just machines, they're legends. They represent a time when Australian automakers pushed the boundaries of speed, power, and innovation. Whether it's the raw dominance of the Ford Falcon GTHO Phase 3, the precision of the Holden Torana A9X, or the underdog spirit of the Chrysler Valiant Charger E39, each of these cars tells a story. A story of racing glory, engineering brilliance, and the unrelenting passion of car enthusiasts. And that's why collectors are willing to pay millions for them. These cars aren't just investments, they're pieces of history. They're a connection to a time when Australian muscle cars ruled the roads and the racetracks. And as prices continue to climb, their legacy only grows stronger. So, which of these Aussie muscle car legends is your favorite? Is it the Bathurst-dominating Ford Falcon GTHO Phase 3? The razor-sharp Holden Torana A9X? Or maybe the underrated brilliance of the Chrysler Valiant Charger E39? Let us know in the comments. We'd love to hear your thoughts. If you enjoyed this trip down memory lane, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more incredible car stories. These cars are more than just metal and rubber. They're a testament to the golden age of Australian motoring. And as long as there are enthusiasts like you keeping their legacy alive, they'll never be forgotten. Thanks for watching, and until next time, keep the passion for cars alive. See you on the road.